The thirst for lower oil prices is never quenched. Crude has topped $96 a barrel, hitting a 3-month high. The White House says it may release U.S. emergency oil supplies to help ease prices. But while we wait, a new report finds that the U.S. is ramping up oil imports from Saudi Arabia by more than 20%, believe it or not, despite escalating tensions in the Middle East. Here to break it all down for us is Chris Faulkner, Breitling Oil and Gas CEO. Chris, it's good to see you again. This whole Strategic Petroleum Reserve thing, it kind of cracks me up because we did this back last year, June 23rd. Crude was at $95. They released it. We dropped $4. Following week, we're back up to $95 a barrel. It did nothing.
Yeah, it's not going to, and you know, the strategic petroleum reserves are for emergency use for supply issues in the market, and we have plenty of supply in the market right now. It's not for price adjustment, and you are right, it might be a few days worth of corrective measures to drop the price of oil, but again, it's going to rebound, and possibly, and if you look at historical times it's happened before, it actually rises above where it was prior to the release.
Right, so we have the supply, and presuming this economy turns itself around, we're going to have the demand. So what's the issue here?
Well, I think the issue is that, you know, oil's at $96. It's translating to pretty high gas prices. It's an election year. I think the president's looking at all of his options and alternatives, and if he lowers the price of crude and in turn lowers the price of gasoline, well, it helps him out in November. But the reality is he doesn't understand that, you know, we're talking about 700 million barrels of crude in the whole reserve. That's only 80 days worth of our current supply and demand usage. So it's not going to do anything long term. It's a temporary fix. I don't even see why we're even discussing it. It doesn't need to be happening.
It's exactly like having an emergency fund at home. You don't spend the money on shoes. It is for your mortgage payment if you lose your job. And for some reason, they don't seem to get that down in D.C. Let's talk about this Saudi thing, though, because we're supposed to be trying to get off foreign dependency. And yet it seems like we're on it more and more.
Well, the reality is, you know, our production, domestic production is up. We're at about 6 million barrels a day. The problem is, though, we're using 19 million barrels a day, so there's a pretty big delta that we have to make up for. And a lot of that oil comes from Canada, almost 30% from Canada, and now Saudi Arabia, about 17% coming from Saudi Arabia, and that's up 20% this year. So, yeah, we are dependent on foreign oil, and we are moving our marriage closer to the Middle East, it seems.
But yet so many people say that we got a little oil and gas boom going on here right at home. North Dakota, I know your company focuses on Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. We got oil here at home, don't we?
We certainly do. We're actually drilling right now in the Bakken Shale, Breitling is, and we've got huge reserves up there in North Dakota. And if you look at North Dakota as an example of the economic boom the oil and gas industry can create here in the United States, you know, it's a poster child for what we should be doing all throughout this country, not just in North Dakota. But to give you an example, in North Dakota, there's 24 billion barrels of oil in place potentially in that one area in the Bakken Shale. So yes, domestically, we have an ocean of oil. We just need to be able to tap into it and produce from it, and the president has, in spite of him, we've been able to get big reserves out of the ground. But again, the federal lands are locked up. We can't drill offshore. The president's done all that he can to stymie our industry, and yet he wants to continue sending cash to the Middle East and bringing oil from the Middle East, and we all know the geopolitical issues happening there. You know, why are we not focusing on the United States and creating jobs here, and why aren't we focused on the Middle East? It makes zero sense.
Right. I mean, why isn't there another call to reopen the Keystone XL pipeline? Why isn't there more of that going on? I mean, what do you think is holding us up down in D.C.?
You know, I think what's holding us up, it's an election year. I think that the president is posturing, he's making decisions for re-election, not for the betterment of America. And I'm hoping that in 2013, whether we have our current president or a new one, that some of these decisions will get rethought and actually change for the betterment of the United States. We've got 900,000 barrels of crude in Canada. Every day they can be shipped down here on the Keystone pipeline. And it's going to create a huge amount of jobs, 25,000, 50,000 direct and indirect jobs from the pipeline. It's a no-brainer. We need the jobs, we need the oil, but again, the president's looking at things from a different perspective, I think.
And there's an education issue as well, too. I mean, I know a lot of people think that fracking is very dangerous. I do think that there's just a little bit of a lack of knowledge in this as well.
You're right. I think it's misinformation that the public has gotten from documentary movies and all of these things on the internet have led folks to think that fracking is dangerous. But I'm here to tell you that since 1941, when the first well was fracked in Kansas, over 1.2 million wells have been fracked successfully and safely in this country. It is the single most important tool we have right now into putting this country on the road to energy independence. And fracking has allowed us to be able to achieve the reserve numbers in the Bakken Shale and all the rest of the areas in the United States. It's a vital tool that we need, and we must be able to continue using it. And again, it is safe, but again, the public has some misinformation, and we have to, as an industry, do a little education here.
Got to get the word out there. Chris Faulkner, Breitling Oil and Gas CEO. Thanks, sir.